So for this Earth Day, my co-anchor Lindsay Shively live inside a waste management recycling center in KCK. We sent her out there because I don't know anyone else who cares as much about making sure recycling is done correctly than Lindsay Shively, because you've done stories about this, Lindsay, that taught you a lot about what should and should not be done and how to correctly do this for the people that want to make that initiative.
Taylor, that's it. Things changed in the recycling world pretty significantly a couple of years ago, and the standards went up for when they're trying to sell recyclables, how clean it has to be. It's called a contamination rate. So we wanted to start with what you should not be putting into your curbside recycling bin. I brought this plastic bag because I know that's one of the big no-nos for your curbside bin. And then when I got here, I asked the folks at Waste Management to bring me some of the other things that they see a lot of that you should not be putting in there. Garden hoses, for example, don't do that. Look at fire extinguishers, propane tanks, car batteries. So let's join Paul Howe, getting up early with us this morning. Thank you, Paul, from Waste Management. These are big because they get tangled up in all of your stuff, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we call them tanglers or wrappables. And they'll get wrapped up in our equipment and shut the equipment down, and it also contaminates the load, the outbound product that we're trying to ship out.
You said a key word there, contaminate. Contamination rate is what you call it in recycling when you have something that doesn't go there because it makes it more difficult for the next step of the process. So when you talk about contamination, you've seen that come down a little bit in the last couple of years, right? Tell us how it's changed.
We have, and it's been a good thing. So you and I visited a couple years ago. We did a little bit of story about contamination. And at that point, if you remember, on an average, the communities in this area, we're at about a 25% contamination rate when we looked at residential streams specifically. That's come down to about 20% at this point. So 5%, points, that makes a difference.
But the goal is zero, right?
It's absolutely zero, right? That's where we need to be. So we've got a ways to go. Continued education, talking about it, and just making sure people understand what can and cannot be recycled.
And when we say that, you're thinking, what's the big deal other than it getting tangled if my plastic bag or something that's not supposed to be recycled ends up in the bin? How big is a load of recycling? It's pretty expansive.
Oh, sure, yeah. 52-foot trailer, semi-trailer, or an entire box car of material from railroad going to a processor. So it's substantial.
And if it's too contaminated, what happens to that entire load of recycling?
Yeah, it can be rejected by the people that are receiving it. So that's why we need to make sure we do a QC, a quality check, before the material goes out. We're looking at the bales to make sure that we've pulled out as many contaminants as possible. But until you get into the bale, sometimes it's hard to know.
I was going to say, can you find every single thing in here that's not recycled and just get it out?
No, absolutely not.
We have to do the work at the curb, right?
We do. That's where it starts.
Let's talk a little bit about how things have changed in the recycling world that you've seen, even just locally, in the last year since the pandemic. What have you seen change?
Sure. So the whole shelter at home and stay at home, at least at my house, what we did a lot of shopping online and having materials delivered. E-commerce, we call it the Amazon effect. So a lot more cardboard. We've had an increase of between 5 and 10% in the residential stream of cardboard. Now, listen, increased material, increased recycled material is a good thing as long as it's the right material. Some of the challenges with the cardboard is it'll either have a wax film on the outside of it, or sometimes it has that bubble wrap that's actually attached inside.
That makes it not recyclable?
And that becomes contaminant, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
we need to pay attention when we're recycling everything. Oh, thank you so much. We're going to talk about more what you can recycle. And the key catchphrase Paul said that could help us all stick to the basics when it comes to your recycling bin. We'll talk more about that coming up.